Anyways, let's jump right into today's show. Um, Speaking of a lot of things to get to, we have 5 or 6 big stories to get to. So I figure we would just jump right into all that stuff. So the first story of the day, and kind of shocking to me, not shocking, is Guardians of the Galaxy. So everybody knew it was, and I said this before, okay, this was going to win 2 weekends. Okay, it was going to win the 5th and it was going to win the 12th. And I was right. But when I saw the amount of money it made um, over the weekend, I was really kind of taken. I wouldn't say taken aback by it, but surprised, and in a good way, in a very, very good way, um, because it's one of those things where this just made a lot of money. Um, but yeah, so it made a lot of money, and it it's refreshing to see. It's refreshing to see. And when I always talk about box office and everything else, this is what a box office roughly should do for certain films. Um, and so we're gonna get to the article right now. And so this comes to us from the Hollywood Reporter. So James Gunn's band of galactic rascals are proving their worth to box office as Guardians of the Galaxy enjoyed the second best weekend hold of any sequel in the MCU and the second best among any MCU title, according to final weekend numbers. For Marvel Studios and Disney, the threequel grossed an estimated $62.6 million from 4,450 theaters in its sophomore outing, a mere 47% decline, and more than enough to crush the competition. That's up Sundays from 60.5 million estimate. In more good news, the pick crossed the $200 million mark domestically to finish Sunday with a cumulative total of $215.6 million. Overall, Guardians 3 took in another $91 million from 52 markets for a foreign tally of $315.6 million, including a pleasing $58.4 million from China and $530.9 million globally. Marvel movies have suffered larger than usual drops as of late, so Guardians 3 is welcome news for Kevin Feige's Marvel Studios. That includes February's Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which fell off nearly 70% in its second weekend. Only 2 weekends, Guardians has rocketed past Quantumania's entire global total of $475.8 million. Before Guardians 3, only 5 films in the 30 plus MCU films or universe had fallen by 50% or less in their second weekends. The list is topped by Black Panther, which fell 45%, followed by the original Thor at 47%, Doctor Strange at 49%, Iron Man at 50%, and Avengers at 50%. The previous 2 Guardians movies each declined 55%. Holding at number 2 was Universal and Illumination's A Super Mario Bros. Movie, which grossed $12.6 million from 3,800 theaters in its sixth weekend for a domestic tally of $535 million and $1.21 billion globally, according to final weekend numbers. This week, Super Mario shattered another record when overtaking Minions to become the fourth biggest animated film of all time and the biggest Universal animated title, not adjusted for inflation. New book off New offering Book Club: The Next Chapter only managed a third place finish with a disappointing 6.5 million from 3,500 theaters domestic, well behind the 13.6 million from the first book club in 2018. From Focus Films, the film star-studded cast also was an ensemble: Candice Bergen, Jane Fonda, Diane Keaton, and Mary Steenburgen. Book Club 2 is hoped to see a big bump thanks to Mother's Day, but complicating factors, including was it so-so cinema score from audiences. The first picture earned an A minus and unfavorable reviews. Also, in the age of streaming, older females remained a difficult demographic to win over. Among Friday's ticket buyers for Book Club 2, 73% were female, while 67% was age 45 or older, and nearly 50% were over 55. Holdover Evil Dead Rise continued to scare up good business for Warner Brothers, placing fourth domestically with $3.7 million for a domestic tally of $60.2 million. It earned another $6.7 million overseas for a cumulative total of $71.6 million and $131.8 million globally. Lionsgate Are You There? God, It's Me, Margaret rounded out the top five with $2.5 million for a somewhat subdued $16.5 million. The news is notably worse for the weekend's other big player, Hypnotic, directed by Robert Rodriguez and starring Ben Affleck. The sci-fi thriller, which bombed at $2.4 million from 2,100 theaters, was good for a sixth-place finish. The movie marks the worst worldwide opening for Affleck's acting career behind Phantoms and Chile, not adjusted for inflation. It's also the lowest wide opening for a film directed by Rodriguez. Far more important, though, Affleck in his previous movie Air, which he directed and stars in, the acclaimed sports drama, comes to Prime Video this weekend after receiving an exclusive run in theaters in an unprecedented move for Amazon Studios. Air has earned north of $86 million in a promising start for Amazon's foray into theatrical. So let's talk about this. This is fantastic news all the way around. So Coco says Mario got to 1 point. Yeah, got to 1.2 billion. It just keeps making money in second place at $12.6 million. But this is just the unbelievable run this movie has had, and it's fascinating. And so I'm going to bring it up, and I'm not going to tell you what the spoiler is, but there was a big to-do about, there was a journalist at the Wrap, and I have seen Guardians, Coco. I've seen Guardians. As a matter of fact, if you want to go back, I have seen Guardians. If you want to go back and watch the spoiler cast I did with Matthew Anderson, we did a whole spoiler cast on. So he says that you thought Mario would plummet. I knew he was gonna. Yeah, I really did. I thought Mario was not going to do well. Shows you what I know. So that being said, Guardians this is an amazing film. Just for not only the simple success of what it's done, but how well it held. And I think that's the important thing here. And Marvel really needed the win because, of course, Ant-Man dropped off like a cliff at 70%. But I come out and said, okay, at the beginning of the day, okay, I came out and said that Guardians was going to win 2 weeks. And it did. It won the 5th and it won the 12th. Now we have Fast 10 coming out this weekend. And so the big thing about that is that one of the writers for one of the trades actually dropped a big spoiler. And so the post-credit scene was good, Coco. I agree with you. And it brings up an interesting point that I'll get to in a minute, is now Marvel has all these sequels that they're trying to juggle, right? So they've got Black Panther Wakanda Forever, they've got Guardians. It'll be interesting to see, where they go and how they do it. They said, Fast 10, you're talking about Fast 10. Yeah. So, so that being said, I'm not going to say what the spoiler was, okay? But what I will say is this. It brings up a whole conversation of spoilers in general and why they did it when they did it. But nonetheless, this is good. This is great news for Guardians. And I really hope that this continues to do well. I have no doubt in my mind it will. So that being said, it should make 25 to 30, $35 million next week. I'm really happy for it. James Gunn and what he's done with this, and it was fantastic. I can't wait. I want to see it again. I do. The fact that Mario made almost $13 million Can we just talk about that for a minute? I mean, we all knew this was going to win, but almost $13 million. Now, you're right, Coco. I was saying it wasn't going to do well. You're absolutely right. And it just keeps making money and money, and they can't print enough money for this. Anyways, I think that it's going to be fantastic. We actually have another story coming a little later on in the show about a film that's going to be making its release on streaming. So stay tuned for that in a couple of minutes. But yeah, so I mean, it's one of those things where I think that this is definitely a success, obviously. But moreover than that, I think that I can't wait. If it's this good here, I can't wait to see what it does on Disney Plus. So, I mean, you're talking about maybe by the end of the summer, maybe September, October. You're talking about this maybe on Disney Plus. So this is a spoiler. Well, I wouldn't necessarily say a spoiler. By the way, at the end when Groot says "I love you guys," he's not actually speaking. It's we've just been with the Guardians for so long, we understand him. Yeah, no, absolutely. James Gunn did a phenomenal job with this movie. He did a phenomenal job with it. And this is why his movies do so well. This is why his movies do so well. Because they're emotion. He hits on all of the nerves that you want. It's emotional. It's funny. I mean, I would say this, Coco. Okay. And I'd be curious to get your thoughts on this. Go back and yeah, I'm sure I have no doubt. Go back. So he says James Gunn explained it, by the way. He's right. So what he did, he was actually did a story on this a while back. He said the first one was about the mother. The second one was about the father, and the third one was about themselves. I'd be curious. Go back, Coco, actually watch the spoiler cast. I want to see if you actually what your thoughts about it were, because I think that's that's an interesting thing. But this movie is just fantastic, and it's really what Marvel needed right now. It's really what they needed. I think if we had the Marvels come out in July, I think it would have been too soon. So I'm really, really happy this is actually moved to November. The legendary Star-Lord will give me goosebumps. Gave me goosebumps. Yeah, it's a good send-off movie. It really is. So, I mean, yeah, it's a fantastic movie. I'm gonna go see it again probably, at some point, because it deserves a second viewing. It really does. But, anyways, guys, what do you think about this? How many times have you seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3? Did you like the soundtrack? What was the best part for you? Leave me your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll get back to everybody.